There are certain individuals who enter this life with a unique ability to perceive what lies beneath the surface. The highly sensitive person, HSP, is one such individual, walking through the world with an open door between the seen and the unseen. The highly sensitive soul is not simply attuned to emotion, but to the very pulse of the universe itself. These individuals do not merely interact with the world. They feel it deeply, absorb it, and are often overwhelmed by its intensity. Sensitivity to them is not just a trait, but a portal, a calling that they did not ask for, but must navigate nonetheless. From a young age, many of these souls feel out of place, as though they do not belong in the world they are given. If you have ever felt like the world was too loud, too overwhelming, or too much to bear, you may be one of them. The sensitivity that some perceive as a flaw is, in truth, a divine gift. It is a connection to a deeper understanding, a heightened awareness of the undercurrents that flow through life, both seen and unseen. However, it is also a burden. To feel everything so acutely is exhausting. The world does not reward such receptivity. It rewards detachment, armor, and self-protection. Those who are sensitive often find themselves at odds with the very world they are here to witness. They are often misunderstood, labeled as too emotional, too fragile, or simply too much. But sensitivity, when embraced, transforms from weakness into strength. For the highly sensitive, every sound, every glance, every change in atmosphere is felt deeply. Do you ever feel as though you can hear the silent cries of the world? These individuals are not merely empathic. They are connected to the collective unconscious, picking up the forgotten grief, terror, and sorrow that others cannot see. Their sensitivity is porous, absorbing not just their own pain, but the pain of the world, and yet they carry it silently, unable to escape it, because they cannot close the door between themselves and the collective. In their loneliness, they seek solace, not because they dislike others, but because they are carrying so much of them. But there is a danger. Without the right understanding, sensitivity can become a curse, a burden too heavy to bear. The sensitive soul, if not rooted in self-awareness, risks being consumed by the very depths they were born to navigate. The unconscious world does not differentiate between personal and collective suffering. It merges them into a single, overwhelming wave. Have you ever felt that your sadness was not entirely your own? The sensitivity becomes a trap, where one mistake leads to confusion. The HSP mistakes collective material for personal experience, losing themselves in the chaos. Yet, despite the challenge, there is a deeper truth. You are not broken, but called. Sensitivity is not a flaw to be fixed, but a unique calling to bear witness, to feel, and to transform. The highly sensitive soul is not weak. It is destined for something far greater. To survive the world with this gift intact is to embrace it fully, to understand it, and to find the strength within to thrive. The world may not understand you, but it needs you more than you know. There is a place, just beyond the veil, where unseen forces dwell. For the highly sensitive individual, this is not a distant realm, but a constant companion, ever present and often overwhelming. Have you ever felt as though you were living in two worlds at once? One that is seen and one that is felt? The unconscious realm is not merely an abstraction. It is alive with energy, emotion, and history. It is the wellspring of the collective psyche, where all the hidden, repressed wounds of humanity reside. The highly sensitive person is uniquely attuned to this realm, often unaware of how deeply they are connected to it. As these individuals walk through the world, they unconsciously absorb not only their own emotions, but the collective sorrow, fear, and pain of those around them. Can you recall a moment when the sadness of a stranger seemed to become your own? The sensitive soul, in its openness, is like a psychic sponge, soaking up energies that are not theirs to carry. It is not just the pain of loved ones, but the unspoken grief of a world that has forgotten how to heal. The deep empathy that arises from this connection is both a gift and a burden. To feel everything so intensely is exhausting, but even more so when the weight is not your own. The constant absorption of these energies leads to emotional overwhelm. Have you ever felt so drained that you could not understand where your own emotions began and others ended? For the highly sensitive, this blurring of boundaries between self and other is a daily reality. There is no separation between their own pain and the collective's. They are one and the same. This leaves them vulnerable, emotionally and spiritually depleted. They retreat into solitude not out of a desire to avoid the world, but to recover, to find space to distinguish their own identity from the energies they have absorbed. It is a quiet battle, fought in the inner realms, where the lines between personal suffering and collective trauma blur and twist. But the problem runs deeper than just emotional exhaustion. Have you ever found yourself questioning whether the thoughts, feelings, or pain you experience are truly yours? Being constantly attuned to the unseen world can lead to profound confusion. The sensitive soul may begin to lose their sense of self, unable to discern where they end and the collective begins. This lack of distinction creates a disorienting void where the sensitive person is left adrift, unsure of who they are or what they feel. It is not just that they are absorbing emotions, but that these emotions are now defining them. Over time, this can lead to isolation. Do you ever feel like you are alone in your experience, as though no one understands the depth of what you feel? The sensitive person, overwhelmed by the weight of the unseen world, may retreat into themselves, unable to share their inner chaos with those who cannot perceive it. And yet, it is precisely in these moments of isolation that the sensitive soul finds the most crucial invitation to come home to themselves, to learn how to hold their own space, to heal their own wounds, and to regain the strength necessary to face the world once again. The journey is long and difficult, but it is in these shadowy realms that the deepest lessons are learned. It is in the darkness that the sensitive soul begins to understand their own light. The world of the highly sensitive person is a realm steeped in myth and archetype. Have you ever felt as though you were living out a story that was not entirely your own, yet so deeply familiar? These individuals, born with a heightened sensitivity, are not just attuned to the world around them, but to the deeper, unseen forces that move through it. At the core of this sensitivity lies a connection to the archetypes, ancient patterns of energy and meaning that shape our inner lives. For the highly sensitive, these archetypes are not mere symbols. They are living forces that shape their experiences, perceptions, and dreams. The archetypes are the inner gods and goddesses that dwell within each of us, influencing our behavior, desires, and fears. Do you ever feel as though certain forces within you are calling you toward a path you cannot resist? The mother, the wise old man, the child? These are just a few of the many archetypes that take form in the psyche of the sensitive soul. Each archetype represents a fundamental energy that drives the individual's actions and emotions, often operating at a subconscious level. A sensitive person might find themselves deeply connected to the nurturing mother archetype, feeling a profound urge to care for others at their own expense. Or perhaps they are guided by the wise old man, seeking deeper knowledge, truth, and understanding in all things. These patterns are not just theoretical. They shape the sensitive person's journey in tangible ways, often pulling them in directions that seem beyond their control. But these archetypes are not always gentle forces. Have you ever felt that the energies you are influenced by are both a gift and a burden, pulling you in ways you cannot explain? The connection to the archetypal world is not without its struggles. The sensitive soul, so attuned to these inner gods, can find themselves overwhelmed by their intensity. It is as though they are constantly in the grip of forces far larger than themselves, pushing them toward transformation, whether they are ready or not. These forces speak through dreams, visions, and symbols, offering guidance and challenge in equal measure. Can you recall a dream where a figure appeared, filled with power, wisdom, or even terror, guiding you into a new realm of understanding? For the highly sensitive, discerning the meaning of these symbolic experiences is a critical task. Have you ever woken from a dream and wondered whether it was a message or simply the workings of your imagination? Archetypal dreams are never random. They speak in the language of the unconscious, offering clues about the deeper currents of the psyche. But to understand them, the sensitive person must learn how to differentiate between personal symbols and collective archetypes. It is through this process of discernment that they begin to understand their true self, not as a mere collection of fleeting emotions, but as a living reflection of ancient patterns. To embrace the power of these archetypes is to understand them deeply and to live in harmony with them. What if your sensitivity is not a curse, but an invitation to embody these mythic forces more fully? It is through this understanding that the sensitive person can transcend their struggle and transform the archetypes from overwhelming forces into guiding allies. The archetypes are not the enemy. They are the tools through which the sensitive soul can navigate the chaos of their inner and outer worlds, finding meaning in the symbols and stories that arise. There is a warning hidden in the depths of the unconscious, one that is often left unspoken. Have you ever felt that your sensitivity was both a gift and a danger, as though it could consume you from the inside out? For the highly sensitive person, the line between personal experience and collective suffering is thin, and without careful attention, the sensitive soul risks being devoured by the very forces they are so attuned to. Marie-Louise von Franz, with her profound understanding of the psyche, knew that those who walk so closely to the unconscious must tread carefully. The unconscious does not distinguish between the pain of the individual and the pain of the collective. It is a vast, uncharted ocean, and the sensitive person is often caught in its waves, unsure of where they end and the world begins. Unprocessed collective suffering is a heavy burden. Do you ever feel as though you are carrying a grief that is not entirely your own, yet it weighs you down just the same? The pain of humanity, the sorrow, the terror, the unresolved trauma lives in the collective unconscious, and the highly sensitive individual is especially vulnerable to absorbing it. These emotions do not belong to them, but they feel them nonetheless. It is as though the sensitive person is a mirror, reflecting back the darkness that others cannot or will not acknowledge. This can quickly lead to a sense of being overwhelmed, of losing one's sense of self in the face of such vast emotional currents. It is not simply that the sensitive soul is attuned to others' emotions. It is that they cannot always separate what is theirs from what is not. The danger lies in losing the ability to differentiate between personal feelings and collective material. How often do you find yourself caught in the emotional web of others, unable to discern where your own feelings end and another's begin? This confusion is the key to the warning. The highly sensitive person, Without the ability to establish boundaries, risks becoming submerged in the collective's pain, unable to distinguish it from their own. It is here that the sensitive soul can become lost, swallowed up by the very forces they are born to witness. Developing boundaries is not an easy task for those who are attuned to the world so deeply. Have you ever wished you could turn off your sensitivity, even just for a moment, to escape the overwhelming flood of emotions? But it is not about shutting down one's sensitivity. It is about learning to channel it, to ground oneself in the self. Self-awareness is the key to navigating this delicate balance. The sensitive person must learn to listen to their own inner voice, to differentiate between their authentic experience and the collective suffering they are absorbing. Techniques for grounding, such as mindfulness, meditation, or simply spending time in nature, can help the sensitive soul create a strong foundation within themselves. What if the key to survival lies not in numbing your sensitivity, but in learning to live with it consciously? The sensitive soul must cultivate a deep awareness of their own emotions and recognize when they are becoming overwhelmed by external forces. It is in this self-awareness that the sensitive person can reclaim their strength, learning to hold the world without being consumed by it. The unconscious, while vast and powerful, is not a force to fear. When understood and respected, it becomes an ally, a teacher, guiding the sensitive person through the darkness rather than swallowing them whole. The challenge is not to escape the unconscious, but to learn how to navigate it with awareness and integrity. There comes a point in every sensitive soul's journey where the light seems to fade, where the world grows dark and heavy. Have you ever found yourself in a place where everything familiar slips away, and you are left to navigate the unknown? This is the descent, the necessary journey into the underworld of the psyche. It is an initiation that many highly sensitive individuals must undergo in order to integrate their sensitivity fully. It is not a punishment, nor is it a failure. It is a call to deepen, to transform, and to awaken to a part of yourself that can only be known through the darkness. For the highly sensitive, the unconscious is not a place of calm and order, but a vast uncharted wilderness filled with both treasures and dangers. Can you feel the pull of something ancient and unknown, urging you to dive deeper into yourself? The descent is not only into your own personal unconscious, but into the collective psyche of humanity, the shared wounds, desires, and longings that we all carry. It is here, in this deep and often terrifying place, that the sensitive soul must confront its greatest fears, not as a victim, but as a seeker of truth. The symbolism of this descent often appears in dreams and visions. Have you ever found yourself lost in a dark cave, wandering through a labyrinth, or sinking into a bottomless abyss? These images are not signs of failure or madness, but invitations to confront the hidden parts of the self. Caves, tunnels, basements. These are the archetypal symbols of the journey inward. They represent the unknown, the unconscious, the places where we store what we cannot face. Drowning, too, is a common symbol for the sensitive soul. The feeling of being overwhelmed, submerged by emotions and experiences that threaten to swallow you whole. These symbols, though unsettling, are not to be feared. They are the very fabric of transformation. What if the very darkness you fear holds the key to your greatest strength? The sensitive soul, when faced with these dark experiences, must remember that they are initiations, not dead ends. The descent is not meant to break you, but to shape you. It is a necessary process of shedding the old, of letting go of what no longer serves you, and of emerging into a new, more integrated version of yourself. The darkness is not the enemy. It is the crucible in which the soul is forged. To endure the descent without becoming lost or overwhelmed requires courage and patience. Have you ever been tempted to turn back, to seek comfort in what you know, even when you feel the pull of something deeper. The sensitive soul must learn to stay grounded in the midst of chaos. This is not a journey for the faint of heart, but one that requires resilience and a willingness to surrender. There will be moments when it feels as though the weight of the world is upon you, when it seems impossible to go on. But it is in these moments, when everything seems darkest, that the soul is closest to its breakthrough. What if, on the other side of this darkness, you are waiting to meet the true version of yourself? The descent is not a step backward, but a leap forward into the fullness of who you are meant to be. The journey inward is the most sacred of all, and though it may feel like a struggle, it is also the most profound transformation you will ever experience. Do not fear the darkness. It is where you will find your light. There is a profound power in sensitivity, one that is often misunderstood by the world. Have you ever wondered if your sensitivity was not a weakness, but a door to a deeper, more mysterious realm? For the highly sensitive individual, their connection to the unseen world is not a curse, but a gateway, a gift of vision and mysticism that allows them to perceive what others cannot see. They are not fragile beings. They are vessels of wisdom, born with an innate understanding of the soul's journey, attuned to the subtle energies that move through life. The journey of the sensitive soul is not an easy one. How often have you felt as though you were misunderstood, as though the world demanded you be something other than what you are? It is a common experience for the highly sensitive person to feel like a victim of their own emotions, overwhelmed by the weight of the world. But this is not the full truth. Sensitivity, when embraced, transforms from fragility into a powerful tool for understanding. The sensitive soul is not weak. It is a mystic in the making, a person who is being called to witness the deeper mysteries of existence. Transitioning from victimhood to mystic is a process of deep inner transformation. What if your suffering was not something to escape, but something to embrace, for it holds the keys to your inner strength? The sensitive person must learn to see their pain, not as something to be avoided, but as a vital part of their individuation. Every sorrow, every tear, every moment of overwhelm is an invitation to go deeper into the self, to confront the shadows that lie within and without. It is through suffering that the sensitive soul learns the deepest lessons of life and opens themselves to the mystical realm that lies just beyond the veil. For the mystic, suffering is not a punishment, but a guide. Have you ever felt as though your greatest challenges were also your greatest teachers? The sensitivity that so often causes pain is the same sensitivity that leads to profound spiritual insight. It is the ability to feel deeply that allows the mystic to understand the hidden patterns of the universe, to recognize the sacred in the mundane, and to see what others overlook. Sensitivity becomes a gift, a divine tool for perceiving the interconnectedness of all things. There are many who have embraced their sensitivity and found their mystical gifts. Have you ever met someone whose presence felt like a quiet wisdom, a deep knowing that resonated beyond words? These are the souls who have walked the path of the sensitive mystic. They have faced the darkness of their own unconscious, confronted their fears and doubts, and emerged with a deeper understanding of life's mysteries. One woman, who had spent years struggling with overwhelming emotions, found her true calling as a healer when she finally embraced her sensitivity. Through her own pain, she learned to listen to the energies around her, to see beyond the surface, and to connect with others on a soul-deep level. What if your sensitivity is not a burden, but the very thing that makes you uniquely equipped to heal, to guide, and to see with the eyes of the soul? The path of the sensitive mystic is not for the faint-hearted, but it is the most rewarding journey one can take. When the sensitive soul embraces their gift of vision and mysticism, they step into their true power, becoming not only witnesses to the world's suffering, but guides who can help others find their way through the darkness. The world does not need more armor. It needs more visionaries, more mystics. And if you are sensitive, you're already one of them. You are not fragile. You are light waiting to be seen. The journey of the highly sensitive soul is one of profound transformation, a path that leads from fragility into power, from disintegration into wholeness. Have you ever felt as though your soul was breaking apart, only to emerge stronger and more whole? This is the process of individuation, the sacred journey where sensitivity is no longer seen as a weakness, but as a powerful force for self-realization. Through this process, the sensitive soul learns to integrate the many parts of itself, the light and the shadow, the conscious and the unconscious, emerging reborn, empowered, and ready to walk in the fullness of its being. The descent into the unconscious is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of a new chapter. What if the darkest moments of your life were the very moments that laid the foundation for your transformation? As the sensitive soul emerges from the depths, it does so with a new understanding of itself, no longer defined by its fragility, but by its strength to endure and grow. The unconscious, which once seemed like an overwhelming force, now becomes a source of wisdom and guidance. It is here, in the shadow, that the sensitive soul finds its true power, a power that comes from embracing all parts of itself, both light and dark. This is the critical shift, from fragile to feral. What if, in embracing your vulnerability, you discovered an untapped well of strength? The sensitive soul, once overwhelmed by its emotions, now learns to channel them with purpose and clarity. It becomes feral, not in the sense of being wild or uncontrolled, but in the sense of being deeply attuned to its own instincts, its own inner truth. This shift is not about rejecting sensitivity, but about reclaiming it in its purest, most powerful form. The sensitive soul steps into its power, not by trying to fit into a world that demands detachment and numbness, but by embracing the full range of human experience, feeling deeply and living authentically. The unconscious, which once seemed like a source of chaos, now becomes the wellspring of wisdom. Have you ever felt that the darkest parts of yourself were actually where your deepest truths resided? The journey through shadow reveals the deeper layers of the soul, those parts that were once hidden or denied. As the sensitive soul confronts its fears, its wounds, and its unresolved emotions, it gains access to a well of wisdom that is both personal and universal. Sensitivity, once seen as a burden, is now recognized as a tool of insight, a way of seeing the world with greater depth, understanding, and compassion. Through this process, the sensitive soul reclaims its wholeness, integrating the light and shadow into a unified self. What if the pain you have carried for so long is the very thing that makes you whole? The journey of individuation is not about becoming someone else, but about becoming more fully yourself. It is about embracing all parts of you, the sensitive, the fierce, the joyful, the broken, and allowing them to coexist in harmony. The sensitive soul, once fragmented, now stands whole, empowered, and ready to meet the world with the full force of its presence. You are no longer the victim of your sensitivity. You are the master of it. For the highly sensitive soul, the world is an ocean of energy, and every wave is felt deeply. Have you ever felt that the energy of those around you was consuming you, leaving you drained and lost in their emotions? Without clear boundaries, sensitivity becomes a flood, an overwhelming tide that leaves the soul adrift. To navigate the currents of life with grace and power, the sensitive person must learn to establish and maintain psychic boundaries. These boundaries are not walls to shut the world out, but delicate, yet firm, lines that define where the self ends and the other begins. They are the key to surviving and thriving in a world that constantly demands more from the sensitive soul than it can give. Without boundaries, sensitivity becomes absorption, and absorption leads to overwhelm. Have you ever felt like a sponge, soaking up the emotions, the pain, the stories of everyone around you? The sensitive soul, when unprotected, is like a wide-open channel through which the energies of the world pour. It is not just that these individuals feel deeply, it is that they absorb the energies of others, whether they want to or not. Over time, this constant influx of outside emotion and energy leads to exhaustion, confusion, and a loss of self. The sensitive person begins to forget where their feelings end and others begin. They are no longer able to discern the difference between personal emotions and collective pain. This is why developing discernment is essential for the sensitive soul. What if the key to your power lies in your ability to recognize what is yours and what is not? Sensitivity without discernment is chaos. To survive in this world without being consumed, the sensitive person must learn to navigate the fine line between personal experience and collective material. They must learn to ask, is this my feeling, or is it something I'm picking up from someone else? Is this my pain, or is it the world's? The ability to distinguish between the two is the beginning of empowerment. It is through discernment that the sensitive soul learns to hold their own center without becoming lost in the sea of emotion that surrounds them. Energetic sovereignty is the next step in this journey. Have you ever longed for a way to protect your energy, to stay grounded and centered no matter what is happening around you? Energetic sovereignty is the practice of claiming full ownership of one's own energy, of learning to shield and protect the self from external influences. This is not about closing off or disconnecting from others, but about remaining deeply connected to the self, regardless of the chaos that may surround. When the sensitive soul embraces its own energetic sovereignty, it becomes intuitive, empowered, and capable of navigating the world with clarity and grace. There are practices that help the sensitive soul cultivate these boundaries. What if meditation, mindfulness, or simple energy shielding could help you reclaim your space in the world? Meditation is a powerful tool for centering oneself, for learning to distinguish between inner and outer experiences. Mindfulness allows the sensitive soul to be aware of when they are absorbing too much, providing a moment of conscious awareness before the energy takes hold. Energetic shielding practices, such as visualizing a protective light surrounding the body, can help maintain a strong boundary against external influences. These tools, when used consistently, help the sensitive soul regain control, ensuring that their energy is their own. You're not meant to carry the weight of the world. You're meant to feel it, witness it, and transform it, but only from a place of strength and sovereignty. The highly sensitive soul is not meant to disappear into the shadows or become lost in the world's noise. What if you are not here to change the world, but to reflect it, to show others what they cannot see? The sensitive person, with their deep attunement to the unseen and the unspoken, serves as a mirror for the world. They are not just passive observers. They are active participants in the collective unfolding, holding up a mirror that reveals what is often hidden. This is a sacred role, one that requires both strength and clarity, for the sensitive soul reflects not only the light, but the darkness of the collective consciousness. In the quiet spaces of their presence, the highly sensitive person can see what others cannot see: hidden truths, unspoken fears, and buried emotions. Do you ever sense what is unsaid? The subtle energies that linger in a room? This is the gift of sensitivity, the ability to perceive what remains invisible to most. It is not a mere observation, but an embodied knowing, a deep understanding that does not need words to be communicated. The sensitive soul feels the pulse of the world, intuitively understanding what others cannot articulate. This deep connection allows them to act as mirrors, reflecting not just the surface, but the deeper currents that shape human experience. This presence, the simple act of being, has the power to shift collective consciousness. What if your very existence was a catalyst for transformation? The sensitive soul does not need to do anything in order to create change. Their presence alone is enough. When the sensitive person stands in their truth, rooted in their inner knowing, it has a ripple effect on those around them. Like ripples on water, their energy spreads outward, touching others, awakening them to a deeper understanding of themselves and the world. It is through the sensitive person's quiet strength and profound awareness that the world begins to shift, ever so subtly, toward greater clarity. However, the sensitive soul must understand that they are not here to fix or save the world. What if your purpose was not to change others, but to simply hold space for them as they change themselves? The sensitive person's role is not to take on the burdens of the world or to rescue others from their pain. Instead, they are called to hold space, holding the energy of the present moment without judgment or attachment, allowing others to see themselves in the reflection of the mirror. In doing so, they become a vessel for truth, not in the sense of imposing truth, but by witnessing the unseen and unspoken. The sensitive soul does not have to speak the truth to reveal it. Their very being becomes the living embodiment of it. The world may not always understand the sensitive soul's role, but that does not diminish its importance. What if, by simply being who you are, you were fulfilling the most sacred task of all, bearing witness to the truth of the world? The sensitive soul is not here to rescue or repair, but to reflect and hold space for the world to awaken to its own truth. The world is a mirror, and the sensitive person is the one who has learned to see through the surface, recognizing that behind every face, every story, and every struggle lies a deeper truth waiting to be revealed. You are the mirror, not the fixer. And in this quiet, sacred role, you become a force of transformation. The sensitive soul must return to the world. What if the world you once knew now looks different? Because you have seen it with new eyes. This return is not a simple re-entry, but a transformation, a rebirth into a new way of being. The sensitive person, once lost in confusion and overwhelm, now walks through the world with authenticity and presence, grounded in their true self. They no longer shrink back into old roles or personas that once offered comfort but masked their true essence. They stand firmly in the truth of who they are, unafraid to let their sensitivity shine as a gift rather than a burden. The paradox of this return is profound. What if you are more connected to the world now, but in a way that makes you feel more alone? The sensitive soul's journey inward has cultivated a deeper awareness of the world and its energies, and yet, this awareness can sometimes create a sense of isolation. The more awake they become, the more they realize how many are still asleep, moving through life unaware of the deeper currents that shape their reality. This heightened connection can feel alienating, as the sensitive soul navigates a world that often values detachment over depth, numbness over feeling. But it is in this paradox that the true gift lies, the ability to be deeply connected, yet fully grounded in one's true self, free from the illusions that dominate the collective. Navigating the modern world as a conscious, highly sensitive person requires a new set of tools. What if the key to living fully in the world is to engage with it from a place of inner clarity and strength? The sensitive soul must learn to honor their boundaries, to protect their energy, and to engage with the world intentionally. The chaotic pace of modern life can overwhelm the sensitive person. But by practicing mindfulness, grounding techniques, and energetic sovereignty, they can remain rooted in their truth while engaging with the world. It is not about retreating from the world, but about learning how to participate in it with presence and discernment. The final calling for the sensitive soul is to live not as a victim of their sensitivity, but as an awakened, integrated, and empowered individual. What if your sensitivity is not something to be fixed, but something to be fully embraced? The sensitive soul is called to embrace their gifts, not to hide them away or downplay them. They are called to step into the fullness of who they are, to live authentically and powerfully, no longer burdened by the world's expectations, but freed by the truth of their own being. In doing so, they transform not only their own lives, but also the world around them. You are no longer the person you once were, lost and overwhelmed by the world's chaos. You are a beacon of truth and light, and the world needs you now more than ever. Embrace this final gift, to return to the world not as a victim, but as a conscious, awakened soul who has learned to navigate the depth of life with grace, power, and authenticity. Tools